Yo, what up, dudes? This video is going to be covering the Ironworks of Misery map on Dead by Daylight. This guide is going to show you how to get around the map and also to know where you are. We're going to cover where things spawn and basically how to have a direction so that you know where you're going, whether you're a survivor or a killer. So let's hop right in. Okay, so to start this video out, here is an image of a blank map of Ironworks. This is just showing the actual shape of the map with nothing in it. I'm going to be slowly filling in this map with things on the map to help you guys figure out where you're going and what spawns where. And as you can see, I have a little legend off to the right side that's going to show what things look like. I'm going to be representing pallets with these little yellow squiggly lines. The jungle gyms, or we'll call them maze tiles, are probably the more official term for them, will be the red squares, and then the green dotted lines will be paths. But first things first, before we hop into any of that, the most important thing, especially if you're trying to learn your way around maps, are the landmarks. The Ironworks map actually has a decent bit of landmarks, and the most obvious one would be the actual Ironworks building itself. That's obviously the huge building that's in like the center of the map that has a giant foundry and stuff, so it's pretty hard to miss. We'll get more into that building and everything that spawns around a little bit later. The other landmarks that spawn on this map are the shack, which spawns on the other side of the map, and then there is a path that leads from the shack to the side of the Ironworks building. The path is just kind of a dirt road that, you know, doesn't have anything on it. It's just kind of like a clear set in stone path, which I'll show you in a bit. And aside from that, it has two log spawns as well. These are actually not always logs. It has a chance to either be a stack of logs or a water tower, but the word water tower doesn't really fit in a square very easily, so we're just going to call them logs. Landmarks are really important because they're the kind of reference points to figure out where you are in the map. Like, for instance, on this hill, I can see the foundry, I can see the water tower and the shack, so I can tell that I am like around the center of the map. You could also see the path over here, and kind of behind the path, behind some trees, you can see the other stacks of logs. I'll give you a quick run through of me going down to the Ironworks and then going to the bottom of the path and then going up towards shack to show you on the map exactly what it looks like to run from one side to the other. Now, keep in mind, this is really important to be able to identify these because this is how you find out where you are on the map, right? If you spawn in and you have no idea where you are, you can figure out where you are through the landmarks and by knowing the map that you're on. And then knowing that, and then, you know, knowing everything else that I'm going to teach you by the end of this video, you can know exactly where to run to find pallets or, you know, windows or whatever safety that you might need if you get in danger or if you just need to be in a good position. On top of the bigger and more obvious landmarks, there's also the maze tiles that you can use too as landmarks because they will always spawn in the same place. Now, I have these marked on the legend as jungle gyms because that's another term that people sometimes use for them, but they're officially called maze tiles, so I might have this changed for future videos. But these are the various maze tiles that spawn around the map, such as the T-walls or the single pallets, and these will always 100% of the time be there no matter what. The pallets that spawn on these maps outside of these maze tiles are actually not 100% spawned, so the fact that these will always be there no matter what, like you can know for a fact that there will be something there for you to use, makes these extremely powerful. So if you know where these are and you're in a chase, you can know that you can run to them to guarantee to have some form of safety. On top of that, just knowing where they are on the map and being able to see where they are in correlation to the other landmarks, like being able to see two jungle gyms to the side of shack near a path, can be enough for an experienced player to know, like, oh, I'm on this corner of Ironworks, and then they'll know exactly where they are. So not only are they a safe spot for you to run to whenever you're a survivor and you're in danger, but they also are kind of used as landmarks because you could use them in correlation with the other landmarks to really get a feel for where you are and what map you're on. Okay, now let's talk about all the other tiles on the map. These are all the most simple tiles, and they have a chance to spawn a pallet, but they also can spawn a giant dead zone. Meaning these aren't 100% guaranteed, but it's still important to know where they are so that when you're running, you can look that way to see if you could identify a pallet or not. Okay, so here's the map with all the potential pallet spawns shown. Now, obviously, if anyone's played this game at all, you know that there's no way that a map would ever have this many pallets. Keep in mind that these are all potential spawns, and usually you'll get maybe 5 or 6 out of all of these. So rather than just showing you this giant mess of a map with a bunch of lines, I'm instead going to take you into the map and show you one by one the pallet spawns until the map is filled. So those are all the pallet spawns. Hopefully that gave you a good like representation of what it looks like around the map, as well as maybe giving you a good idea of how many pallets actually spawn on the map as opposed to like dead zones that spawn. A really important thing to keep in mind here is that you need to be able to identify from far away the tiles that are going to have pallets, or at least tiles that can have pallets, as opposed to the ones that are guaranteed dead zones, because when you're running around as a killer or a survivor, you have to know whether you're heading towards something that might be strong for the survivor, or, you know, something that might be safe, or you're running into a zone that has absolutely nothing. So if you're having trouble identifying this, I actually have a video that shows every single tile that can spawn on Macmillan. It shows which ones have pallets and which ones don't. So I'll link that in the description, and you guys can take a look at it if you guys want. Okay, so now that we're done talking about all the pallets and maze tiles and landmarks that spawn around the map and where to find them, let's talk about the actual main building. This is the Ironworks building. It's the Foundry. This is what the map is named after. This building is kind of interesting because it's really huge. There's a whole bunch of like Foundry, Ironworks things in the middle. Around the actual bottom floor of the map, there's just it's just a bunch of dead space for you to run around. There's a bunch of different corners, and each corner has a potential generator spawn. I'm pretty sure there will always be a generator in here. Now that they made the game so it's always a 4v1, there should always be a generator in this building. It also has this like upstairs catwalk area that's really unique. No other map has something like this. There's nothing really up here. Like, it's just a giant catwalk. There's a few lockers. There's a bunch of holes in the railings where you can jump down if you have balanced landing, or, you know, if you're like a killer and you catch someone up here. And then there's like this top room up here that has a chest that always spawns, another locker, a few totem spawns, and these two windows where only one of them will be open and the other one will be boarded up. This is kind of a weird area because there's nothing really up here. There's no objectives. There's not any pallets. There's just like a bad window and a locker and a chest. So it's a really weird area because there's almost no reason to go up there. But if you're being chased by the killer and you have a big head start on him and you can run upstairs, it kind of wastes a bunch of his time just running around this top part without actually doing anything. So as a killer, I would suggest not ever really chasing anyone up here unless you absolutely have to. And as a survivor, I wouldn't really mess around up here unless maybe if you have balanced landing or if you just want to get the loot. The two totem spawns are right here, by the way. There's one behind those boxes, and there's one behind the boxes outside here on the catwalk as well that I just showed. So if you're struggling to find a totem on this map, it could be in there. As far as actual useful things in this building goes, though, there's a few things around it. For instance, this window on the side is probably one of the strongest windows that exist in this game. It used to be a major problem back in the early game's release, but it's, you know, with a few patches like Bloodlust and Entity Blocker, it's a little better now, but it's still extremely strong. And if you can get a good head start from the killer before running to this window, you can actually loot this window for a very long time. As a matter of fact, if you get enough distance, you can keep the killer from even being able to get into a chase at all, which will prevent Entity Blocker and Bloodlust. But that's pretty hard. But even if you have just a little bit of distance, the amount of time that it takes the killers to vault this window is not that much shorter than the time distance that they make up chasing you around. So basically, every time that you vault this window, they'll only catch up a slight bit before the next vault. It makes it one of the strongest, most crazy windows in the game. I personally think this should have been removed forever ago, but that again is another topic for another day. But this window is extremely powerful. I feel like I should also mention, just for the sake of mentioning it, that it's generally considered like bad-mannered to stay at this window as a survivor. It's like blatantly way too strong, and there used to be more of like a quote-unquote honor code in this game like years ago. Nowadays it doesn't exist as much, but still generally to this day, if you're the kind of person that will never leave this window and just stay at it every chance you get, or like run back to it every chance you get, the killer might treat you badly for doing so. Like they might camp you or play in a way that's unfun against you because of how broken this window is. But I mean, do whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you how to play or how to not play. I just figured I'd throw that in there as like a fair warning. And while I'm at it, I guess I might as well throw out there too that if you're a killer player that's struggling here as a killer and you're not sure what to do, my only advice would be is if somebody is constantly taking this window, just don't chase them. Honestly, I hate that that's the answer, but the answer is literally just to not chase them. That window is so extremely strong. There's not really a lot that you can do. There's not really any mind games that you can play if the survivor's remotely smart. So if you're having trouble here, if you're running into someone that's constantly using this window, just don't chase them. Just leave and go find someone else. Like, it's not a true infinite. You will be able to catch them eventually with Entity Blocker and Bloodlust, but it's guaranteed to take a decent amount of time. Like, there's no possible way you'll be able to catch them quickly because there's no room for mind games. You have to wait for Bloodlust and Entity Blocker, which just makes it not very time efficient, and you're a lot better off just finding someone else in a worse position. So as well as the window, there's also a couple pallets that spawn around this. If you are looking at it from this entrance, which is like not the side of the staircase, there is a pallet on the right side over here that is kind of tied to like 3 little boxes. And if you go to the other side, the left side of the building over here, there's a pallet that's kind of like by these, I guess they're like caterpillar tires, I guess is what you'd call them. And then if you wrap around the other side is where, I mean, there's the window there too. And if you wrap around the other side here, this is where the stairs are. So just to get like a basis point of where you are, if you're on the side that has the stairs, you know, they're kind of on like the left outer side is the one pallet, and the right side outside of the window is the other. So it's important that if you're in this building and you're being chased, you have to kind of remember where to get to these pallets because they're the nearest safety, right? So it's really important to be able to know based on where you are in the Foundry to be able to get to these. Keep in mind, though, however, that these pallets are some of the weaker pallets that exist in this game. These are not safe pallets. These are like a pretty good example of a pallet that is actually unsafe. There's actually very few unsafe pallets that exist in this game, but both of these pallets that spawn that I just show you are decently unsafe. This one by the tractor tires is just not very big. Like there's only one side of it, so you can't really like do a lot with looping. You're kind of just stuck there trying to time your vaults, and it's not big enough that you're able to vault perfectly every time. You most likely will get hit if the killer mind games. And this side over here as well is actually the same way. This might throw people off because these boxes actually used to be 4 boxes a while back, and then they changed it to 3 boxes without really saying anything, so a lot of people might not realize that it's weak. A lot of killers will just break this pallet right away, which is weird because you really don't need to. You can mind game this. It's actually not that big. If the survivor makes an even slight bit of a mistake, then you get the hit. As survivor, if you play it like perfectly, you can maybe waste some killer's time, but you're most likely going to get hit if you stay here. As survivor, if you're trying to play these tiles, I'd highly recommend just trying to loop it and then bait the killer into getting stunned, and then during the stun animation leaving and trying to find a better spot on the map to get to. And as killer, I would do the opposite, and I would try my best to keep the survivor at the tile if you can. Don't break the pallet and use it to, you know, keep the survivor there and make them try to mind game you and then get a free hit out of it. Okay, so there's one tile that I have to cover on Ironworks that's very interesting. It's this one right here. This tile is completely unique to Ironworks. This tile will only spawn on the path side of the Ironworks, basically at the end of the path. And right outside of the Ironworks building. This will not spawn on any other map ever. But at the same time, it's not a consistent spawn. The other pallets that I showed you that spawn around the Foundry will be there 100% of the time. You will never load into this map and not have those pallets there. They're always there. This pallet, however, kind of follows the same rules as the other pallets throughout the map, where they sometimes spawn and sometimes don't, but it's still unique and you won't find this on any other map. So I'm going to cover it real quick as far as its safety and how to play it. It's basically a pretty fair and slightly safe pallet. If you try to play just one side of this pallet, the killer will most likely get a hit. But if you can use your mind games and, you know, you loop it, go for fake vaults, really try to bait the killer into making mistakes, it's decently safe and you can get a lot of play out of this and maybe even play it almost forever. But if you make one mistake, especially if you try to play one side, if you make even like a slight mistake, the killer can take advantage and get a hit. It's not super safe. But I figured I would cover that real quick. I actually, like I said, I have a video that covers every tile that can spawn on Macmillan maps, but this one's weird because it only spawns on this map. Alright guys, I think that's about it for the Ironworks video. Please let me know your guys' thoughts on this video. Map videos are something that I find really interesting because I don't think a lot of people cover this, but at the same time, I think maps are probably the most important thing in Dead by Daylight. I did my best to try to spread the information that I have as good as I can. I'm not sure how well it came across. This is something that kind of comes with practice, but if you guys have any feedback of something I can do better that can portray it to you guys better, please let me know. I've been playing this game for literally 3 years, so this all just kind of comes to me naturally, so I'm trying to, you know, think of a way that it could be portrayed to someone that doesn't have 3 years under their belt that would make it clear and concise. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to let me know. Or if you just like the series and want me to continue it, let me know as well, because I'm definitely excited to be doing these. And thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and all that good jazz. And I will catch you guys next time. Have a good one. Flee you later. Flee it. I'm out of here. Flee it.